Hi, everyone. Welcome to this ProcessMaker 3 training session, which is part of the beginners training series powered by Diapo Diamond. I am your host and trainer, Afe Araram. For our 11th session, we shall continue our work on our demo projects. And this time around, we want to focus on completing everything about the second task of the cash advance requisition leg. That is the supervisor approval task. At the end of this session, you should have seen a demonstration of how we can add email notification functionality to the tasks in our process by virtue of creating mail templates and setting the notification properties for our tasks. In addition to all of this, you should also have an understanding of case permissions and case notes and what they are all about. Then, as well as add the necessary triggers and JavaScript logic we need to our supervisor approval dialog form. So much to do. It's going to be very interesting. So let's unpack. We just finished talking about email notifications in our last lesson. So let's make good use of that knowledge now by creating some email templates. So we need an email template that will be used when any request is rejected back to the employee. So let's go to the process, a cash advance and express retirement process. We want a rejection email template that will be used in the cash advance leg whenever a request is rejected from the supervisor back to the employee. So let's quickly create that email template. So we'll come here and name it notify rejected cash advance. Okay. And what do we type in here? We say hi. Remember, let's select all and take area and size 12. So hi to who now? Employee name. And we already have employee name as a variable, if you recall. So we click on this variable picker and type name, hit enter. It filters a list and we can see employee name. So double click on that to add it. And we're going to use it as original form. So at equal to rather, at equal to. Remember, that's the prefix we would use for the variable so as to avoid it having quotation marks. So hi employee name, and we say your, let's, sorry, select everything again and make sure it is area and size 12. Oh, size, area, size 12. Okay. So why is this thing so small? Your cash advance request case. So what's the case? We'll put in app number here. So let's use at equal to again. And say this is app number, select it. App number, and do this for the amount requested commas. So let's select that again. Typing comma to filter. So amount requested commas has been rejected and returned to your inbox, or yeah, to your inbox on ProcessMaker. Then we want to add the reason for rejection to it. Remember when we were dealing with the add comment to case notes trigger, I talked about using an unregistered variable called previous comments. Okay, so we need that here now, and put an at and put previous comment, and then type you can access the case. So using this URL. So we want to provide a URL that they can click. We've not created the variable, and we've not created the trigger logic that will set it. But let's just add this first to let's call it case link URL. Okay, so let's select all and ensure its area, the size, okay. Okay, so looks more like it now. We want to make the case number bold. So let's select this, make it bold. I also would like to make the amount requested commas bold in the email. I would want the reason for rejection to have an underline. Okay. And yes, this link to be a link. So I want the color to be this blue. Okay. So something like this, and we can save this. If we look at the HTML text for what we've done, would see reason for rejection. It's underlined, and there is an empty. So okay. So this closes that, and then this. Okay. So we are good to go. We are good to go. Now, the next email template I would like us to create would be to notify the supervisor. Yeah. So let's consider that carefully. So we already have an email template to use for rejections back here. What about when we want to notify the supervisor, and we want to notify the the finance officer. We want to notify this finance officer. And when this case, when the case is approved by the finance officer and the case routes to this task, we want to notify the employee as well. So three more email templates that we need to create. So I'll create notify supervisor cash advance. Okay. And for this, let's use the rich text. We'll just type hi at no. So we have a supervisor name. So let's take the supervisor name filter. Oh, we don't have a supervisor name registered. Okay, we need to go and register that ASAP. We'll come back. We'll register it later, but let's just type this now. Supervisor. I hope it's correct. Name. And we'll say the cash advance request initiated by, let's put the employee name here now. Let's type name, the employee name. Okay. For the amount commas now. So the amount requested commas, say, has been sent to your queue on ProcessMaker. Kindly log in and access the case from your inbox folder. Thank you. You can add alternatively, you can access the case using this URL. And we add that case link again at equal to case link URL. So supervisor name and this case link URL are two variables we need to register. So copy this now, or we need to change the font to Arial and the size to 12. And as usual, I would want the amount commas to be bold, and I want the case link to be of blue color, blue text. Okay, we save. So before we continue to create the other email templates, let's ensure we add a case link URL. We don't need to register it. It can also be used without being registered. So let's just create the supervisor name. So that's okay. We don't need to register the case link URL. It's an unregistered variable and we can use it like that. I think we don't also need that supervisor name. I think we could even delete the supervisor name. Let's leave it as an unregistered variable. Okay, so let's go back there. Let's continue with our email templates. And the next one we want to create will be to notify the finance group. So what we'll do is to open the HTML editor for the supervisor template. And let's just copy what is there. And then we can go and make use of it. So we'll create another one and call it notify finance cash advance. Okay. So we'll then click on this HTML button here and we'll select all and then paste the HTML that we copied from the other email template and click on update. So we have this now. But what do we want to do here? We'll just now need to edit this to text. And here we'll say hi, finance officers. So the cash advance request initiated by employee, blah, 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 for amount requested commas has been sent to your queue, to your team. Let's make this team on ProcessMaker. Kindly log in and access the case from your unassigned folder. Thank you. And then we can say you could also access this using this, and this. So that's good. So let's look at this let's make sure we copy all of this and keep them somewhere. We're going to be needing these names, the names of the templates. So we have notify supervisor.html. We have, let's copy this. We have notify finance 2. And then we have notify rejected as well. HTML. Now, the last one I will want us to create will be the one that notifies the employee when the finance officer approves it and the case is routed to the very first task on the expense report leg. For that one, we'll call notify employee That now is on the expense report next. So add ER as a suffix and HTML. So let's go now and create this guy. So create another template and we'll put that name there. So what do we want to inform the employee? So we can say hi, then add tag the employee name. And double click to select it. Hi employee, put the name there. When you are, or we can put here that your cash advance requests for, let's put these the commas now, comma, and take the at equal to. So we are taking the amount requested. Well, no, this time around, it will be the amount advanced. We prefer to use the amount advanced because that is what will be approved by the finance. So let's come back here and type this and use amount advanced commas. So your cash advance request has been approved by finance and you have been advanced the sum of, so that's where we now put the advanced commas. So next line we can now say when you are ready to retire the expenses for the amount of, we need this amount advanced commas again. Let's see, can we copy that? For the amount of this you have been advanced, kindly continue. Then we need to put case now. Case. So what's the case? Let's use this app number system variable. We'll say from your inbox folder. Then add a thank you to that. And we can add the case link URL. Okay. So it looks very tiny. Let's resolve that. So I think we should just say your cash advance request has been approved by finance. So that is sufficient. Okay. So we can now say when you are ready to retire the expenses for the amount of, so there should be an equal to here amount. Make this bold. You have been advanced. Kindly continue case. So make this case. So sorry, before I make that bold, continue case, blah, 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 from your inbox. I thought I typed that. Inbox folder. We add a thank you. Okay, so let's make this bold now. And as usual, let's change this to a blue color. Okay, so it's going to look like this. So I think at this point, the email notifications we need for the cash advance leg, we've created them all. Okay, so where should we use them now? So at this, we're going to use the notification property here. I will say notify the assigned user to this task. So we're using this option or this approach for a rejection scenario. And so the email subject, for email subjects, what should we use? We can use cash advance request, we can say hyphen case, and then we get the app number. So app number, and make sure it's this. Okay. Then we're not using plain text now, we're using HTML template, and we want to use the notify rejected CA. Okay. And then we can save. So we've done that. So how do we notify the supervisor? We can use the notifications here to notify this assigned task. I need to copy this so that I don't keep typing cash advance request. We could say supervisor approval for cash advance requests, case number, and then of course we add the app number to it. So let me select or copy that, but we'll use that later. The HTML template here, we're using the notify supervisor CA. Okay. Now for the finance officer, we are going to select this. We want this to be notified. This time around, we would call this finance approval, and we use HTML template, and we select this guy. Okay. But how do we handle the email notification to the employee? We cannot come to set it here, because what we would prefer to set here would be the rejection email for the expense retirement leg, or the expense report leg. Okay. So what we will do is to set the notification to the employee that his cash advance has been disbursed. We will still set it on our finance. So this time around, we'll make use of after routing, notify the next assigned user option. So when we select that, we can paste this now and say, not this now, cash, what do we call this? What's the best way to name this email subjects? We can say disbursements for cash advance. So let's take that and take email template, and then we select notify employee this. So that wraps up all the email notifications for the cash advance leg. So let's remember I talked about setting the case link. Yeah. So we've been putting that unregistered variable, the case link URL, in our email templates. So we would want to set the case link as well as the label for the hyperlink in the message. So for that, we're going to create a trigger, and we'll call it set case constant. So whatever is going to be a constant throughout the process, we could use this to set it. Okay. So we'll say trigger for the process to handle constant values needed in the process. Okay, so let's save that. So where are we going to set this? We set it in here at the very initiation, very first task, before the before the first form loads, we set our case constants. So right there, we need to use a switch because we want to use this trigger for both the cash advance leg and the expense retirement leg. Okay, so let's use a switch, PHP switch function, and we want to tie this to task. So let's take the task string. So when the task is the very first task, remember we kept all of this before. This is the task UID. Let's copy that, paste here. We want to set the login label. Let's just call it that. And it will be cash advance case number. And then we add the app number to it. Okay. And then put a break. Now, when is the first task of the expense leg? We still have the UID of the first task there. Let's copy this and let's paste it here. So we copy this and paste this here. Okay. So this time around, it will be expense retirement. Retirement case. That's that. Okay, so before the switch, we will need to set the login label to initialize it as an empty PHP variable. Initialize needed variables. So we can paste this and set it to an empty string. Okay. So we'll then define the login URL. So the login URL, for this we'll use a PM ProcessMaker function called PMF case link. And the only thing you need to pass into it is the case UID, which we can get from the application system variable. So this generates a link, a URL to the case. Now we can then format our unregistered case link URL as a hyperlink in our email templates. So let's define this. Href is equal to this, and then it will be this. Then we have that's the label, and then we would close the hyperlink. So something like this, but it should be a string. Remember now, it should be a string. Okay, so single quotes here. So for us to do that, remember the href is this URL login URL. So which means I will need to concatenate it like this. And then this ZZ triple Z, the Z's, would be the login label. So this login label. So I'll need to do a concatenation here too. And then we'll close the string up. So that is that. We can test this very soon, and when we are testing the case, we'll see how this works. Okay, so we can save this now. So we've done that. Is there any other thing for us to set for the first task? We've already set the email notifications. So we are good. Then we've set the add comments to case notes and the approval. So as far as we're concerned, the first task is finished. So let's look at the second task. For the second task, we will need to add a Dynaform step. And for that, we would need to create a Dynaform for the supervisor. Yes, we need to create a Dynaform for the supervisor. So let's quickly go and do that. So add the prefix C arrow for cache advance requisition, and then we'll call it approver supervisor. Okay. And we can say Dynaform for the cash advance requisition and expense retirement process to be used at the supervisor approval task. Let's save and open it. And as usual, we need to drag in a form title, and we'll call the ID here form_title, and the label will be cash advance requisition, and we'll call it supervisor approval. Okay, so having done that, we will drag in the subform for our common fields. Okay, and then the next thing we will do is to drag in the subform for our comments section, these comments. And after this, we'll create two buttons, one to approve the request. So divide this role into two columns. So we drag two buttons, two submit buttons, one on the left and one on the right. And for the first one, we are going to give it the ID approve_BTN, approve_BTN, and copy this and ensure that the ID is the same as the name. And here we can type approve request. Okay. Then for the other button, we'll call it reject request as the label, reject request as a label. And for the ID, let's make it reject_BTN. Copy it and ensure the ID and the name are the same. Okay. Then lastly, we need our approval sign-off subform. We add this. So you see that because we used subforms, it was quite easy for us to quickly create a supervisor form without dragging all the fields again. So let's preview to see how this looks. So beautiful. This looks okay. Well, there are a couple of changes we need to make on this form because we need our approve button to be green and our reject button to be red. And then a couple of other things we need to do on this form. So let's quickly do that. When the form loads, we want this amount advanced to not be required. That's critical. the amount advanced should not be required. The date advanced too should not be required. Those are two things that must happen when the form loads. Okay. Then we'll also would want to add some CSS so that our buttons can have the right color. Okay, so let's quickly do that. So let's add JavaScript logic for that when the form loads. So I'll just let's copy the code. I think we already have a section for that. So let's access the case again, okay, or the process again. Let's go to our Diana forms and go to our initiation, and let's copy the document.ready section that we have here. So let's just copy this. Let's copy that. So copy. We'll reuse some of the parts there. So we can go to our supervisor form now, and we can paste this. So we are not making use of this cleave aspect, so we can remove that. We don't need this other one. These fields should remain disabled. Then, yes, so the amount advanced comma should be disable validation for it, so it's not required. Same for the date advanced field. Then we don't have an acknowledgement label on this form. So let's remove this. So what we're left with now is the approve BTN, which we do here, approve BTN, and then as well as the, let's copy this, paste. This will be the reject BTN. Now remember, the reason why we are removing this because by default, let me comment these two lines out. Let's check first for the required property being removed from these two fields. Let's preview and see. We can see that the amount advanced field and the date advanced are no longer required. But let's look at these buttons. If we inspect elements, you see that it has the class .btn-default, right? And remember from our custom CSS that we added, so let's go there. Let's go to this PC. Let's locate bitnami. Let's go to apps, ProcessMaker, HTDocs. We'll go to workflow on this, go to CSS, and let's open this msb.css. When we open it up, we come down a bit, you see that for approve, BTN approve, we have this defined. So we can remove the default class and add the approve class for approve and the reject class, BTN-reject for the reject button. So that's what we've done in this JavaScript page. So we can remove this now. And let's go and preview. We see this needs to be the reject class. So let's come here and turn this to reject. We save and preview again. We see it now has the colors that we want. Now, when this is like this, we don't want the user to just click on this and the person submits immediately. So let's even have let's test what we've done so far to see what we are talking about. Okay. So, for us to test up till the second task, we need to even test what we have done here. We added a case constant. So let's quickly go there and test it. So let's die and dump this unregistered variable and see what it will give to us to see if this trigger is working appropriately. So as usual, we are going to log in as Anu Bello, an employee, and we'll go to raise a case on cash advance. We see this is the URL it's going to generate. So we made a little mistake here. It's supposed to show this is not showing right. So there's a mistake here. It's showing the case UID. I think that's where we made our mistake. So let's quickly correct that. Set case constants. Let's check. So we said it should be cash. The label should be cash advance, then case hash. What are we seeing here? So the cash advance is not showing with the number. The case number is 18. The cash advance is not showing. What are we missing? Oh, okay, that's seeing that now. So this is the mistake. Cash advance, we're supposed to have concatenated it. Yeah, so that's the error. So sometimes we can make these mistakes if we're not very vigilant. If we're not, so we're supposed to have typed instead of a a closing quote, I typed a dash and a hyphen. So that's the mistake. So that is sorted out now. So let's go back and reload frame. So you see now, so this is how it's supposed to look like. So it means that is working. We have tested that. So we can go back and remove the die and dump line. Okay. So let's reload frame again. So this opens. Let's type 70,543 there. And let's type testing here. Okay. Anything else? So let's type in employee submits. Just want to also test the add comments. Remember, we have not tested that. This add comments to case log. And we've also not tested this update approval sign-offs that we did earlier. So this would be a very good time to test those. So we can submit this. It goes to Bako Audu. So if we log out now and log in as audu.bako, we see the case here. But let's see, did we get a mail notification? You see, supervisor approval for cash advance request. So we got a notification, and this is the message. See, the cash advance initiated binding bill for this has been sent to your queue. So this is the case link URL I was talking about. If you click on this now, it will tell you you are about to open. Let's do that. You see, it's sorry, because here we are signing as the admin, we will not see the case. Let's copy this URL and go to the browser where we are signed in as Audu. So you see it's supposed to open the process, the case at that task, but there's a little error here now. It's saying all conditions in evaluation is routing to false. Okay, so that's because we go back to our process. We have not added the form. We've not added the form, and so what the process is doing is already evaluating the conditions here because there is no form step or diner form step. So we need to add the diner form. So that will be the CA approval supervisor. So if we add that now, I'll come back here and reload frame. Sorry, let's go back and open the case again. So it opens the task, opens the form now. And as you can see, you see that our comments did not work. And for our approval sign-offs, these also did not work. So this would be a situation of we did not type in the variable name correctly. That can easily be fixed. But let's check whether our hypothesis is correct. First, let's go to the form. And this is sign of employee. Let's copy the variable. Well, let's check the ID of the variable. The variable name is the same thing as the ID of the control. So that is not a problem. So let's check this now. And we said the employee sign off. Let's paste and see. It's exactly the same. So what could be the issue? The issue would be that the issue could be something is wrong with line 2 of our code. Something is wrong with line 2 of our code. That's why this is coming out as empty. Okay, so let us quickly check this out. Let's solve this problem here. Let's solve this problem. Let's go to, since we have a case at this task, let's use this task for it. Remember now that we would need to also add comments here before routing, add comments to case notes. And we would also need to update approval sign-offs after routing. But since we have an issue with this trigger, the name of the current user is not populating the fields, we'll shift the position of this before diner form to check. Or let's put it after diner form to check. So we want to die and dump this variable that is supposed to hold the name of the current logged in user. And let's see if it comes out empty. So go back to the case. We submit this. You see it's empty. So that's where the problem lies. Okay. So how do we resolve this? It's quite simple. Let's die and dump our data. So we see the problem. So instead of data, I type $dates. So that's where the problem is coming from. That was a mistake. Let's paste. And let's die and dump the $s name again and see whether that solves the problem. So let's go back and submit again. You see, it gets the name now. So that solved the problem, that first problem. So we can move this back to after routing and remove the die and dump line. Okay. Now, the second thing you would notice if we go back on this form is that our comments did not. So it's not that something is wrong with our add comments to case notes. It's nothing is wrong there. Nothing is wrong there. There's something I intentionally omitted so that it will be a point of reference for you, because when I started ProcessMaker development, I remember making this mistake twice. And after suffering for hours, checking the trigger code, what could be wrong, why is case notes not working, before it dawned on me that I omitted certain case permissions. So even if your trigger code for adding comment to case note is working perfectly, the system will still not move comments from this field to the comment logs field because you forgot or you missed setting the case permissions. So let's go to the permissions section of our main toolbox and click on that. So we'll create permissions. So we'll consider the groups that are involved with the process and create permissions. So for employees is our first group. So I'll search for employees, select, and what permissions do I want to give to employees? Everything here, but it should be participation is required, meaning an employee cannot see the should not be able to should not have permission over a fellow employee's case, so to speak. That's why it is necessary to set the participation to required. Same thing will apply for the supervisors. So we set permission to yes as well. Then lastly, for the HR, for finance officers, a finance officer should be able to see all cash advance requisition cases. So they don't need to participate to see. So participation required will be no. So now that we've done this, uh, add comments to case notes trigger would work appropriately. So for us to test that, let's put a rejection here. Let's reject this case. You will notice that if you click on reject, it just wants to go straight. We don't want that kind of experience. We want, in sometimes people can mistakenly click, it may be rare, but people can mistakenly click on the reject button. So now we also see this problem that our conditions are not evaluating correctly. So let's see why our properties our variable to do that is well defined. It's because it is not set. Nothing has set by the decision, following the decision of the user or the supervisor to reject the case. This variable was not set in any way. We will need JavaScript to be able to do this. So let's go to our supervisor form. So let's try to edit and go to JavaScript. Okay. So for the approve button, let's target the approve button. So dollar, we'll use jQuery here, and we'll do approve underscore btn. We'll do a dot find. What are we looking for? We're looking for button and do a dot on. So we're adding an on click handler to the button. So on click, it should run an anonymous function. Okay. We are missing, oh, sorry. This should be in parentheses. We are missing that. Okay. Let's look at it carefully. So we have approve underscore btn. Okay. Okay. So let's define our anonymous function now. The first thing we'll do will be e dot will prevent the default behavior of a submit button. So meaning if the user clicks on it, it should not immediately submit the form because there are some lines of code we want to run. Okay. So we'll prevent that, and then we can say sorry, I would like to call a function called form submission, form submission. And the same function is what I will use for my reject button. So that's why it's going to have a parameter that we pass in. And that parameter will be approved for the approve button. And basically kind of repeats the same thing, not in full, but closely for the reject button. So here, this will be reject underscore btn. Before we call the form submission and pass in reject, there's something we want to check. We don't want the user to reject without providing a comment. There must be a reason for the rejection. So what do we want to do? We check if that comment field has some value. So to do that, we would say dollar dot get value if it is equal to nothing. So I need you to, so what are we targeting? We are targeting the comment field. Okay. Okay. As you can see, so if the comment field, if we get the value of the comment field and it is empty, then there is a problem. We need to send an alert to the form. And what is the alert message we are sending? Would say, please provide comments before rejecting the request. Something like this. Then to truncate the code within the anonymous function here, we would return false. Okay, so we return false. So this should work. So what is left now is that we have not defined this form submission function. So what do we want to use that to achieve? We don't want a scenario where someone clicks on the approve or reject button and immediately the form wants to start submitting, right? We want to ask the user, are you sure you really want to submit? So let's call this section of our JavaScript code form submission event handler. Okay. And then we can then copy, let's use the name of the function we said we'll use or create. And of course, we are passing in, sorry, we need to start the line of code with function, and we are passing a variable called, we want to call that variable or parameter action. And then we can now define what we want our function to look like. Okay. So what do we want to do? We put an if here and some line of code. Sorry, undo. So what do we want to put in the if? We send a confirmation, a confirm to the a confirm text to the user. So confirm, and what do we want? What's the question we want to send to the user or message? Are you sure you want to approve or reject? So that's why we will need to concatenate this with the parameter action. And then we'll do this. Are you sure you want to approve or reject? Approve. Are you sure you want to approve? Are you sure you want to reject? So that's basically what we've done there. So inside there, we will then, if the action passed in is approved from the approve button. So we'll have this. If action is strictly equal to approve, then there are a couple of things the process or the form should do. JavaScript on the form should do. Else do if it is rejected, there's something else the form should do. Let's set the if block for the approve section first. So we want to set the is approved variable is approved variable. We want to set its value to 1. Yeah. So let's look at that carefully. Is approved is 1. And then the form now can submit form dot submit. See, I hope I don't have a typographical error there. Okay. So all of when it is a reject, let's copy all of this and let's paste here. So if it is a reject scenario, then is approved should be set to 0, and then the form should submit. So that's basically what we've done here. So let's save the form. Let's go back to where we were testing it, and let's go back. Okay. Now reload this frame. Now once we reload that, let's see now. If I click on reject, it will ask, you see, please provide comments before rejecting the request. So that works. So let's say supervisor rejects as a comment, because we are testing this. When we click on this now, you say, are you sure you want to reject? The moment you say okay, so something is still wrong. You see, even though we are setting the variable, let's be very sure there. Let's go back to our JavaScript. We are setting the variable, let's see, $ is approved, $ is approved. Okay, so the question now would be, do we have that is approved variable on the form? It's not on the form, that's what the problem is. So we need to go to one of our subforms and add that is approved. So let's quickly do that. Let's go to the common fields and create 2 columns here, and then add the is approved as a hidden variable. Okay, so select is approved. So that's that. Then remember again as well that we are going to hide these other 2 values later when we are done with the process. But now we are still building and testing. So let's save this. So let's go back to where we are testing the case. Go back and we can reload frame now. So by the time we click on reject now and say okay, you see there's no problem because the variable exists on the form, and we have used JavaScript to set its value to 0. So you see it's returning to the initiation task. We will click on this to continue. And when we log out, let's see, have we received a notification? Yes, this is it. So cache advance request, we see has been rejected, and you can see the reason for the rejection based on the email template that we set. Okay, so let's say we need to edit this subject to be cache advance request rejected. So it's better that way. Sorry. So let's go back and set the notification property and ensure this is cash advance request rejected. Let's add that and save. Okay. Now let's log in as Anu Bello. Remember the request has been rejected to the initiation task. So let's log in as Anu Bello and open the case. When you open, you see that you can see this now that our comments are working because we have set the case permissions. So the case permissions we set is working with our trigger named add comments to case notes, and it's working. We could see that Audubako added these comments, supervisor rejects at this date and time. Okay. Now we also see that our sign of approval is working well now. Okay. So one more thing. So let's assume that in this case or scenario, that when the case was rejected, remember, Anu Bello, the initiator of this request, started it on the 17th of November. So let's assume that when the case was rejected, he did not open it again same day, and he opened it on the 20th of November. There's going to be a little shift. It would mean that this request date value will change. Why will it change? Because every time he opens the case, this trigger is going to fire. We don't want that. We want to ensure that the date for initiation, the request date, remains the same, irrespective of how many times the case is rejected to the initiation task. So for that to happen, we need to set a condition for this trigger so that it only fires once. And since in this trigger, one of the things we are setting is the case owner UID. This is usually empty at the start of the case. Just at the moment the case starts, it is empty. Before this trigger fires, it is empty. So we set that as a condition and say at case owner UID, as long as it is equal to empty, the trigger should fire. So once it fires and that variable is populated, this trigger will no longer fire, or the code inside will no longer be executed. So that was just the only thing left for our initiation task. Okay. So we can see that for our supervisor task, we have all the triggers. We just need only 2 triggers there, and everything is accurately placed. Okay, so for now we have come to the end of this lesson. But before we close the session, we're going to submit this case from Anu Bello back to the supervisor and say and add and just put a comment to see if it works here. Employee submits, and then we click on this, and you can see it is submitting directly. We could also change the behavior of the submit button with JavaScript code, but I'm not going to do that now because I would want us to use the sweet alert library for our buttons in the next lesson. So that's what we're going to start with. But for now, let's not submit this case so that we can use our sweet alert library in the next session, and then we work on the finance disbursement task, for which is the last task of the cash advance leg of the process. Let's not submit this for now. Let's leave it. That brings us to the end of this session. I hope you enjoyed yourself and that you learned something tangible. See you in the next session.